Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to be all about the latest summon showcase. It's another Gala remix showcase this time around, introducing Nina, our shopkeeper, who's been with us since the beginning of the game, as a new playable adventurer. She is a wind healer, and alongside her on the showcase, we also have the return of Nina Reborn Zephyr as a wind dragon here with an appearance rate up. And in addition, with this showcase coinciding with Valentine's Day, we also have some returning limited time adventurers who are going to be available on this showcase, but they're not featured, meaning they're not going to have a heightened appearance rate, so they're still going to be pretty hard to pull on this showcase. They'll probably be eligible for sparking via worm sigils, but in all likelihood, it's an off chance that you're just going to get these three characters when you're randomly summoning for Nina or Reborn Zephyr. So they're less of a factor in the decision of whether or not you should summon on this one. Now the showcase is only around for a few days this time around, so 2/14 to 2/16, so you just have 3 days or so to summon on this showcase. And the other thing that's going to make this a little bit tricky is that we don't really know whether we're actually getting a proper Valentine's showcase for this year after this banner. Are we going to get another showcase on the 17th, which perhaps features some new limited time Valentine's Day characters, maybe some new dragons, or are we just going to get a filler banner after this one, like an elemental focus or a dragon special? So that is somewhat of an open question at this point, but as always with these showcases, if you wait until the last day that the showcase is live to make your decision on whether or not to summon, that will serve you well in that you'll have more information by that last day. When we come to the 16th, we're going to know what the banner is coming out on the 17th. We're going to get a preview a day ahead of time, and so you'll know whether the next banner is going to feature any kind of new limited time characters, or if it's just going to be more of a filler banner. The other thing to consider at the time I'm posting this, it's still the last opportunity to summon for Valix and Ferris, so you may want to weigh whether it's better for you to summon for them or summon here for Nina and Reborn Zephyr, and to a lesser extent, I guess, the Valentine's characters who are here if you're really seriously considering trying to spark for them or something like that. And ultimately, I think that I lean toward the Valix, Ferris, and Michael showcase as having a little bit better value. Nina looks like a great wind healer, probably in our top 2, top 3 wind healers. She might be the best one. But I do think that some of the novelty in her kit, and one special thing that she can do in particular that no other healer can do, I think that some of that is more fancy than good, and in practice, it may not have as many opportunities to shine as it might appear on paper. So we're going to see that she can do something very unique that is quite rare in the game, and completely unique up until the last banner with Ferris introducing something like this too. But just because she can do that doesn't mean that's going to come up very often and actually help push her to the top. But besides having that unique functionality, she's also just a really solid, well-rounded healer in general, so I still think that she's still one of the best healers. So there's that, and then there's Nina Reborn Zephyr, who he's also an excellent wind element dragon, but we've had quite a few good wind element dragons, so you may not necessarily be hurting for wind dragons if you've gotten Fudomyo O, who is our New Year's wind dragon, if you maybe have Gala Beast Volk on your team, if you have Midgard Stormer Zero, or even just a Zephyr with 5 unbinds. Those types of dragons can put in pretty good work, so you may not really be pressed for this Nina Reborn Zephyr. As good as Zephyr can be with the ability to spam skills, it's a great strategy in the Mercurial Gauntlet, for example, but I feel like Wind is pretty deep with its dragons now, and you may have just gotten some of the other dragons in your various summons so far. So ultimately, I think this is a pretty good showcase. Both of the featured things here are positive and strong, but I would probably lean towards saving resources or going for Valix and Ferris instead. And so that is personally what I plan to do. I'm gonna summon after posting this video for Valix and Ferris, and we'll post that in the next couple days, let you know how the summoning session on that goes. But I still think that it's going to be fun here to discuss Nina and talk about what makes her so special as a healer. And honestly, just as a fan of Nina, since she's been around since the start of the game, if I had all the resources in the world, of course I would want to summon for her, just because she is such a unique character in the game's history. And it also kind of just occurs to me, like, we're getting all these royal siblings, we got Kimono Not, now we're getting Nina. I don't know what's going on, but it just, yeah, I don't know if this is like a renaissance period for Dragalia Lost or what to really make of it. Like, the other thing I noticed here, you know, her quote, "I'm dreaming big, the Nina shop is going to spread its wings and fly global." Could it be a true global release for Dragalia Lost? I think it's kind of unlikely, but I've been really impressed with the characters they're putting on these showcases lately. As somebody who has generally preferred to have ends tied up rather than new characters introduced, I'd like to continue to see existing characters get playable versions in the future, so I've been really happy with this, but it has been hard on the Wormite and the summoning currency for sure. So anyway, let's go ahead and talk about Nina's kit here. Of course, in her portrait, just want to point out, you can see Irfan in the back there, as well as Francesca. Makes sense, they're the characters most tied to either being merchants or being interested in money and gold, and then Not is carrying a scroll here too. I love this portrait. There's probably a lot more little details, like if you just look at what she's holding in her basket there, you can see what appears to be either bread or diamantium, some succulent dragon fruit, some consecrated water for worm prints. I bet there's more details here. These scales, the elemental orbs, so the scales represent the treasure trade. Yeah, this is really nice. And just the bulletin board there. That'd be one that would be really fun to kind of look through if you summon her, because you'll be able to see the full portrait, or look through on the wiki, of course. But anyway, Nina is a wind healing unit, a bright and cheerful woman who runs a shop in South Grastea. She earnestly serves any customer who comes her way, but is merciless when it comes to shoplifters or those who make unreasonable demands. And just to state it right off the bat here, what I was referring to earlier and what makes her so unique is she is our first healer, from what I can tell, who can actually revive her teammates. So if her teammates get knocked out and they're otherwise out of the quest, she is going to have a very unique ability, and I guess skill technically, to be able to actually revive them and bring them back into battle, which is almost shocking because we've never seen anything like it. But as I thought through the use cases for a wind element healer, I don't think it'll actually be super broken. I think that a lot of times in the wind element, or when you're using the wind element to fight water enemies, let's say, a lot of the mechanics that are going to lead one character on your team in solo to perish are going to cause your entire team to fall in battle. So, for example, Yaldabaoth, usually if you're losing that battle, it's because Yaldabaoth uses absolute law and you haven't been able to handle all the mini enemies that have spawned, and that one-shots your whole team, so one character is not going to make it through that and be able to revive everybody. Similar story with Iblis. Iblis has the 2 ballads, and if you're not able to afflict Iblis frequently enough within those ballads, then he'll do a move that one-shots your entire team, where once again, one character is not going to slip through that and be able to revive everyone else. So I think although that revival mechanic is super special and super unique, there are sort of built-in limitations with the design of the battles where you're using wind characters, which will make it a little bit less good in practice than it would appear on paper. But still kind of a wild concept that, you know, could have auto battle implications down the road, maybe when we think about Primal, Midgard-Sormer, or Mercury, I should say. From now, like, Primal Midgard-Sormer is kind of designed in a way where 1 or 2 characters could die off, your lead characters could die off, and revival would help. So if Mercury is designed in a similar way, that could be a fight where maybe having Nina as your healer is going to make it easier for you to auto, for example. So I think that this is a really interesting turn of events. Ferris had something similar on the current showcase where he can revive himself once per quest, and he has a debuff after he comes back from that revival, but Nina's able to apparently do it repeatedly, so I'm very curious to see whether this enables any kind of shenanigans, maybe off element or otherwise. But when it comes to the hardest content, the legend difficulty content where you're using wind characters, I don't think it'll be super broken. So that's my high level take on her. Let's go ahead and read through her skills now. Oh, and we're starting over, so let's read through the skills after we click back into Dragalia Lost. I guess it might be something with the recording functionality on my iPad here, iPad mini, because I never get crashes when I'm actually playing, so apologize for that. But let's click back in. Okay, we're back. And here is Nina. And now let's look at her skills. So first skill is called Pop-Up Shop. Love the name for that. It's shareable with a share point cost of 6. Restores HP to all teammates. The recovery is increased to 10 times the normal potency for teammates who are at 30% of their maximum HP or less. Then gradually recovers the entire team's HP. In addition, activates the following cumulative effects based on the number of charges the Shopkeeper gauge has. So it heals more if your teammates are below 30% of their max HP, and it also gets some bonus effects in addition to that regen, which it always gets, but it gets bonus effects depending on how many charges you have in your Shopkeeper gauge. So if you have 1 or more charges, the recovery potency is increased. If you have 2 or more, it removes all afflictions from the entire team, so that's kind of nice to have that affliction cleanse built in. And then if you have 3 Shopkeeper gauge charges, which is the max, it grants the entire team a team strength amp. So as we've seen with more recent characters, it leapfrogs the personal amps entirely, and you're getting an entire team strength amp, which is going to buff your whole team. So if you have 0 charges, the recovery potency is only 10. You do get 40 seconds of regen though, with a potency of 25. That's equivalent to what Formal Noelle does with her healing, and for a lot of content, her healing is plenty, even to get through Creeping Corrosion. So I think that even though this recovery potency burst of 10 seems small, the fact that you get the healing over time identical to that of Noelle means that Nina's not going to have any problems keeping up as a healer. And if you're really in an emergency when your teammates are at low HP, then this 10 here is going to be multiplied by 10 times and be a recovery potency of 100, which is more typical of a burst heal. So this looks pretty good even without charges. Then when you add the charges on top, with 1 charge, your recovery potency more than doubles up to 21. So when you multiply that by 10, it's going to be a really nice burst heal. And then with 2 charges, you also get the affliction recovery of all afflictions. Pretty nice to be able to get rid of Frostbite, I think. That would be the one affliction that is hard to cleanse for current wind healers. And even then, when I was thinking about the best wind healers, who came to mind for me were Akasha and Formal Noelle, and not even really Lowen, as I think he's kind of fallen off. Certainly very serviceable, brings some good defensive utility, but in Nihility scenarios, he has kind of fallen off from the other 2, I feel. And one of the things that Formal Noelle and Akasha can't do, though, is cleanse affliction. So this is a unique effect to Nina, and especially when it comes to getting rid of Frostbite, and I guess Freeze as well. Lowen can heal Bog, so if you have Lowen, you can get rid of Bog, and that'll be fine. But then a lot of Lowen's types of buffs that he does are hindered by Curse of Nihility, whereas with Nina, it doesn't look to be the case with any of the buffs that she's going to be providing. So I think this is still very good. And then with 3 charges, you also get that team strength amp, which is going to be a nice way to power up your entire team. So it doesn't say that it consumes the charges here. So I think that you'd want to save this until you have 3 charges, and the fact that the regen lasts so long, you're going to probably be able to recharge and still have like full uptime on your regen. Maybe you could use it if you need affliction recovery in an emergency, but that's probably the way that I would approach this. And her second skill, Everything Must Go, is what I was talking about earlier. So this can only be used when the Shopkeeper gauge is completely filled. It completely consumes the Shopkeeper gauge, revives any incapacitated teammates, and completely restores their HP. So you get a full restore. You get a max revive and a full restore, actually, for people who are alive, because it also restores HP to all teammates and removes all afflictions from the entire team. So yeah, that's really shocking to read on paper. That really surprised me when I first saw that. It does take your entire Shopkeeper gauge to even use Everything Must Go, but then, here's the kicker, furthermore partially fills the skill gauges of all teammates, excluding the user and dragons, and during the skill, the user is immune to knockback. So, special effects include Revival, Recovered from Afflictions, and then Skill Prep. The fact that it says 100% potency, I'm not sure what to make of, because it says partially fills the skill gauges of all teammates. So, if it completely fills them, that would be truly degenerate, but I think it's probably going to be partially, or maybe it gradually ticks up over time to get them to 100%. But still, this seems really promising on paper. But I think in practice, like I said about Iblis and Yaldabaoth, the moves that tend to get your teammates killed in solo play are usually attacks that are going to wipe your entire run. And Nina's not necessarily going to help you in that respect. In co-op, granted, she might be able to help if one person is struggling or making some mistakes. You're going to be able to resurrect them. And for Primal Mercury in the future, she might be useful for things like auto, or even for co-op if there's unavoidable damage that comes into play, and she's able to provide an alternate means of getting through that. What I really like is the fact that you do get some skill gauge back and you're fully restored, which is one of the weaknesses of the current revive system. A lot of times in auto, if you are in a fight where revives are enabled, it's still a challenge if you die during the fight, because when you come back with that revive mechanic, none of your skills are charged, your whole team is at low HP, you're in a very vulnerable place when you're relying on that, and sometimes that can cost you the run, despite the fact that you're able to revive. So being able to bring back characters with some skill gauge and at their full health to help them tank through a few hits, while you slowly build up the ability to recover them further, I think that makes this really strong in principle. But like I said, the fights that are really difficult, it's rare that it'll be just one character that randomly dies. It can happen, but I feel like it's pretty uncommon. Maybe if you're trying to like auto legend fights, maybe, but I feel like still the barrier there would be more the screen wipes that can happen rather than any one particular character dying. And to take it a step back to Ciela, well, Master, Expert, and Standard difficulty are autoable with pretty low-powered teams. We're talking about characters who all players have, like Ronzel, Harl, Lowen as your healer, 4-star character who most people will have, and Templar Hope, another 4-star character most people will have. And because of that, you know, yes, you could probably use Nina and revive your team, and that's great, but you don't really need it. It's kind of overkill for that content. And even when it comes to Legend Ciela, yes, Nina might help with auto consistency if that's something you're interested in attempting, but I do feel like the points of failure are ones where multiple characters are dying at once, or Nina herself might die being caught in the crossfire. So thinking about Legend Ciela, there's a couple of points of failure I can think of with an auto run. One would be the slime mechanic, where you have to defeat a slime and it gives you a defensive buff that protects you from a screen wipe attack that Ciela does. If you kill that slime too early, it's still going to cost you the run, regardless of you having a healer who can revive other characters, because it just kills your entire team at once. And so I still think that could be a point of failure. I think that Nina might be able to help with things like the glaciers and the waves, Tides of Despair, I guess. No, I think that's a different mechanic name. But the waves and glaciers that Legend Ciela does because sometimes 1 or 2 characters can die during that, and as long as your healer makes it through, you'd be good. So she'd probably be a positive there. But that slime skip portion, I think that would be a struggle. And I think Reign of Despair, where Ciela sends out all these purple arrows, and if you're not careful, like 1 or 2 AI might die. I think that would be the other area where Nina might just like stand in one of those and die on her own. So yeah, I think that probably it could help, but Legend Ciela has been out for quite a while now, and so I think that there's not a lot of incentive to repeatedly play it if you haven't already collected all the materials you need for unbinds on your Agito weapons. Well, at this point, you might be waiting to just get the Primal Dragon weapons anyway. So I think that while the use case is there, potentially, it's just not a high priority use case. So when I look at all the aspects of the end game, that's why I feel like this revive is really novel, but not necessarily that important in reality. Now for co-op and your play group, could be a totally different story. And if you're playing with the same group over and over and you want to help people maybe who are struggling and you want that revive, I could see that being a very player-friendly thing, right? In your alliance or among your friend group, maybe you have one player who's newer to Dragalia Lost and you can help them with the revive mechanic. That would be an awesome use case if you're in that situation for Nina. But for most players, I kind of see it as, it looks cool, it's super fancy, maybe from Primal Mercury, but probably not actually going to come up all that often. Alright, so we read on here to find out Nina has the 20% recovery potency, which is standard on most staff units, and then her Chainco ability, whenever a team member who's attuned to wind has a team strength amp, they get HP regen. So this is a nice other little passive way of healing your team. It's not probably a whole lot of regen, but the fact that she can provide these team strength amps on her own, this is pretty solid. A good way of helping your team survive, and solid to see here, nothing special. Her abilities are Sharp Shopkeeping 2, Freeze Res 100%, and Ceaseless Sales 2. So, maybe you want to throw Bog Res Worm Prince on her, or maybe you just let her herself be able to cleanse all afflictions and you feel like she'll probably make it out okay. That's kind of a debate that you could settle by testing how she does in auto. But generally, I guess for a character like this, it's probably better that she has the freeze res, because if she had bog res and got frozen, she couldn't cleanse herself out of that, right? At least she can cleanse herself out of bog, because she can still use skills when she's bogged. So Sharp Shopkeeping 2, this is what grants her the Shopkeeper gauge that has 3 charges, and it's completely filled at the start of quests. The Shopkeeper gauge is then further filled by using Pop-Up Shop, which is her first skill. Also grants the user a unique Force Strike that deals damage to the target and nearby enemies. When the Shopkeeper gauge has 1 or more charges, this Force Strike will also dispel enemy buffs. Super nice to have Dispel on demand. It is very helpful against Legend Ciela because she does stack defense buffs on herself, which make her tanky and take a lot longer to defeat. So I think that that's very welcome. And even for Yaldabaoth puts buffs on himself too, in the Legend difficulty, and once Iblis releases, I think Iblis is going to buff himself too. So that's certainly welcome to have. I think that this gives her another element of utility as well. So now she's providing strength amps, she's providing affliction cleanse, she's providing HP regen, you're getting the revive functionality, and now you're getting dispel. So I think that the 2 things that I see that are sort of missing from her from the normal utility belt that a healer might have, 1, she's not going to be giving you overdamage. And then 2, she's not giving you max HP increases. So if those are something that you really want, that's not going to be provided here. Noelle's still going to be the one to provide that max HP increase, or Lowen. And then Akasha is going to be the one that provides you overdamage in the wind element. And you could get those things with shared skills, so it's not the end of the world that Nina doesn't have them. But just a consideration, I kind of like it as like a trade-off, a slight trade-off, that she's not just like completely power creeping the existing wind healers. So finally, her last ability is Ceaseless Sales 2. Grants Pop-Up Shop a skill gauge attached to its skill button. When the Shopkeeper gauge has one or more charges, Pop-Up Shop can be used even if its skill gauge is not filled. Using Pop-Up Shop in this way will consume 1 charge of the Shopkeeper gauge. Okay, so this is interesting. So your Shopkeeper gauge stacks can be used in exchange for quicker access to Pop-Up Shop, even if its skill gauge is not filled. Also, consuming 1 or more charges of the Shopkeeper gauge will grant the entire team a team strength amp with a maximum team amp level of 1. After this amp is granted, the ability will not grant it again for 45 seconds. That's interesting too. So if you do this, if you use the Shopkeeper gauge in this way to get extra casts of Pop-Up Shop, you're also going to get a team strength amp with that. So that's kind of interesting. Oh, sorry, I felt like I had to sneeze for a second there. That's kind of interesting. I'm not sure if that's really beneficial to do. Maybe that could be a way of getting amp access more quickly, but it doesn't seem like she consumes the Shopkeeper gauge in any other way, because this doesn't say it consumes the Shopkeeper gauge when you use it. It just gets bonuses based on the charges. This one does consume the Shopkeeper gauge. Everything must go. But yeah, I guess this is okay. Another way of accessing amps. I'm not really sure. I feel like the description's a little bit ambiguous about the difference between the Shopkeeper gauge and the skill gauge attached to Pop-Up Shop, but I'm imagining it might look like Bahamut's skill gauge attached to Bahamut's dragon skill, something like that. And then they've also added here for Nina, in the in-game help section, further details on the skill effect that revives incapacitated teammates, so we'll check that out too. Underutilized section by me for sure, the help section. And then finally, Gala Reborn Zephyr. Not a lot to say on this dragon. Great in Mercurial Gauntlet. You can spam Dragon Transformation. If you have Gala Knot, you're going to get a lot of shapeshifts per quest, because Gala Knot's combo equals Dragon Gauge, which is similar to what Leonidas has. That's just a really powerful engine for being able to shapeshift very rapidly. So Zephyr's a good dragon, but I think Fudomyo and Beast Volk are also just similarly very good. So if you don't have Zephyr, it'd be welcome in your collection. You can start to use some of the Sunlight Stones from Kaleidoscape to Unbind, but it also doesn't feel like it'd be a real game changer if you already have some of the other good wind dragons, including Midgard Stormer Zero, who has some really nice, helpful, unique effects. So let's take a look at that help menu, and then we'll call it a day for now. So help support, we'll look in help, and this is where usually when there's new mechanics introduced on a banner, details will be provided. So I guess this would be in maybe battles or afflictions. So let's see if revive is anywhere in here. Special effects, and it may have been mentioned on the post and I just missed it. Like burst gambits were explained in here when they came out. I don't see it there. Let's look at afflictions just in case. It's not an affliction, but it might be there. Nope, nope, nope. Statuses? No, not in statuses. More? Nope. Huh. So let me go back. Probably missed it somewhere. Quests? Home? Not in home. We'll find it. Eventually we'll find it. Unless maybe it's going to be added when the banner goes live. Nope, I don't see it. Maybe I'm just... Oh, reviving. Okay. Could be this. Could be one of these. In some quests, you'll automatically consume 1 revive. So this is the normal revive mechanic. Number of revives available upon revival. Yeah, this is just like the normal revive mechanic. Now, abilities that revive. Hers is a skill that revives, but it might be considered under here. Some abilities can revive an adventurer. The revive granted by these abilities will not consume any of the revives provided for a quest. If the only revives used during a quest are those provided by these abilities, conditions dependent upon the number of revives used will not be affected. So basically, if you use Nina's revive, it doesn't count against you for bonus purposes on how many revives you consumed. I guess we'll leave it there. I don't know if maybe it's mentioned somewhere else too. But anyway, I think Nina's a fun adventurer. I think she's a good healer. I'm excited to see her playable in the game, but I'm going to be summoning for Ferris and Valak, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on that now. Try to do that before the end of the day. Let me know what you think about Nina's showcase in the comments below. I'd be very curious to hear your take. That is going to do it for today though, everyone. So thank you as always for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.